with Anne. Today's practice will focus on the lower body. Of course, it will be a full, well-rounded practice. My main thing for you is to always remember to honor your body and not just your physical body, right? What's maybe happening in your heart, with your breath, with your mind. So if you need to take a gentler approach to yoga poses or skip a pose or modify, whatever you need to do, please do it. I want you to keep yourself safe. I want you to keep yourself comfortable. Part of yoga practice is to find a little bit of comfort in the discomfort, but you have to be okay with that. You have to be aware of what's happening for you and whether that's appropriate or not. So you are your best yoga teacher, your best yoga tool. So please honor that and be careful and be mindful and be cautious and love yourself. So with that, just a reminder about props. So, you may not have the typical yoga props, and that's totally fine. Towels, books, scarves, belts from yoga, uh, belts from yoga, belts from I'm totally blanking. Bathrobes works, neckties, stuff like that. So what I'd like for you to have today is some sort of blanket. So it could be a towel. Beach towels and bath towels are great because they fold and roll easily. So they're really good for yoga practice. If you don't have yoga blocks, we can work around that. You could use books if you want. They may not be high enough. So that's up to you. And then if you don't have a yoga strap, like I said earlier, necktie, a scarf, the belt from a robe can work, and we can also work around not having the strap. So I'm gonna back up onto my mat. Come join me. Oh, we're gonna start how we typically do in constructive rest. Make sure that your strap is nearby if you have a strap. And come to lie down. So start with your knees bent and your feet on your mat. Your feet can be wide and knees closer, or you just keep your feet and your knees standing and your feet hip distance apart. I like to go a little wider with my knees together. That allows me to relax a little more. Because if I start to relax too much, my knees and legs start to wobble. And that kind of takes me out of where I want to be. Coming to this place, if that means that you need to make a little bit of movement to come to this place of quiet and stillness to get you there, then you do that. And for myself, I'm definitely a fidgeter. So just notice if that's happening. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. Just notice. And then maybe you notice why it's happening. Sometimes we don't even know. I find when I teach yoga, when I'm talking, I tend to move my fingers, my toes around, maybe sway my torso. And it's okay if the fidgeting keeps happening. Maybe you just quiet it a little bit today. And a lot of that can be helped with your breath. Just bringing attention to your breath as it's happening right now. Bring your attention back to your breath and deepen your breath. Fuller, longer, deeper inhale. And a nice long release of your exhale. Maybe make a little movement here. I'm going to bring my feet back to hip distance apart. I'm going to purposely wiggle my fingers and toes. Perhaps you move your head, rocking it side to side. Coming back to stillness, to constructive rest. And then hug your right knee into your chest. So keep your left knee bent for now. Let's do a little movement here in the ankle. So start to rotate in one direction 3 to 4 times. When that's complete, you'll rotate in the other direction 3 to 4 times. When you're complete, you're going to cross your ankle over your left knee. So we're coming into a simple version of figure 4. So have your right foot flexed, and then if you'd like, you can press your right hand into your right thigh, not into your knee, to help move your knee away. So you start to open your hip up a little bit. Maybe you'll feel it in the glutes, in the legs. And you want your foot to be active because that'll keep your knee safe and your ankle safe. And then we'll release our thigh and hug your knee back into your chest. And then you're going to take your strap. I happen to have a loop in my strap. You don't have to have that, but I like to have the loop. Lasso your foot. Have the strap either at the ball of your foot or at the top of your heel. So not right in the middle on your arch. I know it's a little difficult to do. You just do your best. If you have two ends of the strap, have right hand on the right side and the left hand on the left side. Keep your left knee bent for now. And we're going to think about really from our hip crease reaching. So like you're trying to move your thigh away to help straighten your leg. It doesn't mean it'll completely straighten. And then like you want to bring your toes up and over, like your toes are going to come right above your head. And then move your thigh away again. So it's a pretty subtle movement. And then bring your toes up and over. You got one more time. So you find your edge. This can be intense. And maybe you back off. So that might mean that you let go of your strap a little bit. You move your leg away. You could keep your left knee bent or extend your left leg out long. So your left leg is nice and active as well. So you're pressing, thinking about pressing your thigh into the mat, your left thigh into the mat, and your right thigh toward whatever is in front of your left foot. Check in with your breath. Notice if you're gripping onto your strap. If this is too much, you can always bend your left knee. We're going to remove the strap from the right foot. Hug your right knee into your chest. Set your right foot down, and we're going to come into recline tree. So opening your knee out to the side. Your foot doesn't have to touch your thigh. I do have my right foot active. I still have my left leg and left foot active. Hands and arms wherever is comfortable. Pick your right knee up, right foot back to the mat, bend your left knee, left foot to the mat. We'll switch sides. Hug your left knee into your chest. Circle your left ankle 3 to 4 times in one direction, 3 to 4 times in the other direction. And then cross your left ankle over your right knee. Check in here. Things might feel very different on this side. You can take your left hand and press it into your left thigh. Just make sure it's your thigh and not your knee. Keep your knee safe. Your left foot's active. Preferably active through all 4 corners of your foot, but if that causes anything in the body, then maybe it's more through the ball of the foot. So just find what's best for your body. You could also just energetically move your left knee away. I'm doing that just without pressing my hand, though I feel like the hand gives a little support. I'm able to have a little more action in my leg this way. Release and hug your knee back into your chest. Take your strap. Lasso your left foot. Extend up. Before you do any other movements, just come into stillness, right? You really want to feel the lengthening. This side's going to probably be pretty different from the first side. Once you feel fairly settled, then the right leg can extend long if you so choose. Make sure it's active so you're really reaching and pressing down. And then with this left foot and leg, think about moving your thigh away. So the way to straighten your leg is not just to push your knee back, but to think about moving through from your thigh and then bringing those toes over. So Hatha Yoga is a lot about working with opposites, right? That's how we support our bodies. A lot of times it's lower body versus upper body, and versus isn't really the right word. But one part might be doing something and the other. You can think about it here also with your leg. And then settle to a place where maybe you feel some uncomfortableness, some intensity, but not to the point where it's changing your breath. You can't hold this for a few more rounds of breath. And of course, you can always come out of any pose early. Notice if the intensity in your legs or hips or glutes is causing intensity anywhere else in your body, most especially your breath. Release your strap, bend your knee, bring your foot back to the mat and come into your reclined tree pose on this side. So opening your left knee out to the left. Your left foot can touch your right thigh. It doesn't have to, mine typically doesn't, but I do have both of my feet active. And then you're thinking about this left knee, almost like it's trying to grow out to the side. So it's not just trying to come down, it's also lengthening out to the side. That's gonna help, especially this inner hip, the psoas muscle. Bring your left knee up, your foot to the mat, bend your right knee, bring that foot to the mat. And if you'd like to hug in or rock or do a couple of windshield wipers, just a little bit of movement here. And then we'll start to transition over to the side, come up, make your way into a brief tabletop. So we won't be here very long. If you want padding for your knees, you're welcome to get that. This is just to set up. So coming on to all fours, starting basically with your wrists below your shoulders and your knees below your hips. You could stay here. You could come into a child's pose or step your hands about one handprint forward, curl your toes under, lift your knees up and shift your hips back and up. And then once you're here, maybe you pedal or wiggle out your hips. You do want to think about your thighs moving away. That's going to help to bring your legs towards straight, your heels down toward the mat. Your ears are between your upper arms. Your neck is long, so you're not holding your head up and you're not dropping. So you're looking at your toes most likely. I'm going to have you transition into a standing forward fold, so you could walk your feet forward, your hands back, or a combo of the two. You likely don't have your blocks in your body depending on how you step, so you might need to use your body. You could always deeply bend your knees and have your forearms on your thighs. Look how long my spine is. It's completely okay forward fold. Sometimes I like to practice this way because it feels really good for my body. You could have your hands anywhere on your legs or your hips or your blocks, or maybe you easily can reach the mat, but make sure your spine is still really long. So for me, a challenge here is to relax my head, but not to the point of dropping it. So I try to think about lengthening my spine, hinging at my hip creases, and then that idea of moving my thighs back. If you're not yet halfway, bring your hands to your hips, bring your torso parallel to the floor. The next time you inhale, lift the rest of the way up to come up into standing. Into our mountain pose, Tadasana. Just feeling all four corners of your feet in your mat, pressing a little slight press of the thighs away, a lift in your belly, your heart is open, and arms down by your sides. Anatomical Tadasana, palms are facing forward. So just kind of notice what that does to your body. For me, it helps to open my chest and my heart, and I feel a little more connected with my legs and my feet. Who knew? All right, I'm gonna have you stand on the long edge of your mat so that you can step your feet wide. And then let's rotate our right foot and leg 90 degrees. You're gonna kick your back heel back slightly, about an inch, so your toes are in a little bit, your heel is out. And then with this front foot and knee, you're going to really think about pressing that front foot into the mat, pressing your back foot into the mat as you bend your front knee. So you want to make sure your knee's right over your heel, it's not caving in, it's not too far forward. So make adjustments whether you back up, you adjust your body, you adjust your stance. And then think about your mid ribs here. You can put your hands here and you're going to turn your upper belly and chest toward the long edge of your mat. And your hips, your back hip is slightly in, internal rotation. Your front hip is slightly rotated out. So they're not square to the long edge of your mat. If I squared my hips, look what happens to my knee. Ooh, about to fall over. So upper belly and chest turn. The hips are going a little bit in the opposite direction. And then if it's comfortable, you can reach your arms out to shoulder height. So your gaze is typically over your front middle fingers. That's traditional for the pose. You're welcome to have your gaze wherever's best for you. So really think about pressing through the feet, this opening of the hips, helping to lift your spine, and then reaching your arms from behind heart center. And then bring your hands and arms down, hands at your hips, step your back foot in a little bit, almost like you're coming into warrior one stance. So your upper belly and chest turn toward what is now the front of your mat. Hips are still a little skewed, totally fine. And we're gonna work toward a warrior three, which is a balance pose. So maybe today you wanna work more on form. So you keep part of your foot on the mat. Maybe you work on lifting. Maybe you wanna start to work on balance. So if this back leg lifts, you start to really reach like we were earlier lying down on the mat. You work towards straightening your front knee. Doesn't have to go straight. Keep your heart and your hips in the same direction. So they're either facing down toward the mat or maybe up toward the wall, whatever's in front of you. This is a perfectly acceptable warrior three, as is this. Typical warrior three, arms are up and over, but that might not work for your balance or a shoulder issue like I have, it's not actually a shoulder issue, it's a nerve in my neck that affects my shoulder. So just being wherever you want to be today. Maybe it's just a little bit of play here, right? You lift up, you come back. If you're still in your balance, bend your front knee and bring your back foot down, straighten your front leg, parallel your feet. My feet got a little bit closer together, so I'm going to widen my stance before going to the second side. Rotate your left foot and leg 90 degrees, kick your back heel back, press through your feet. Think about your thighs and hips, so externally rotating, internally rotating as you bend your front knee. Upper belly and chest, strong arms, and gaze. Virabhadrasana 2, warrior 2. Make sure you check in with that front knee. So my back shoulder starts to talk to me, so I make an adjustment for my body. Bring your arms down, hands to your hips, step your back foot in slightly, so we're more in a warrior one stance. So your toes are a little bit more turned in. Still, hips are a little skew. You turn your upper belly and chest toward what is now the front of your mat. And then we'll play with warrior three on this side. It might be very different on this side than the first side. Remember, if your leg picks up, you want to be really extended. And we're not doing anything crazy, right? We're just reaching through from our hip all the way out through the heel. Even if that's here, here. If you're a little higher, then you start to work on hinging, keeping length in your spine, keeping your chest and hips facing the same direction. Arms wherever is going to help you with your balance. This is the side where I will struggle a little more with my balance. Wiggling and wobbling is good. That means those muscles are working to get stronger. Another breath or two here. You're still in your balance, start to bend your front knee, release that back foot and leg, straighten your front leg, parallel your feet, and step your feet back together into mountain pose. I'm going to get a sip of water. Excuse me. Whew. Today is an unusual day in Tucson, Arizona for weather. It was like windy and kind of overcast. I think we're still gonna hit lower mid 90s. We already hit 100 last week. And then I think since last Thursday, we haven't since. So today I'm recording this on Friday, May 21st. So whatever last Thursday was. All right. So I'm going to invite you to come into your version of downward facing dog, how you'd like to come into it. So for some people, hinging forward from a forward fold and then walking hands, walking feet is workable. Sometimes that's not. So you come into a tabletop and then step hands forward, curl toes under and lift up. If you don't want to do dog, do tabletop or some other variation. So thinking about maybe even deeply bending your knees so you lengthen your spine and then work toward moving those thighs back, heels down. Bring your knees down to your mat. We're going to do some lunges on our back knee. So I like to have padding. So maybe you want to get your blanket or towel. I'm going to turn just so it's a little easier for you to see me. I have my blocks here. If you don't have blocks, you can use your body. I'll show you how to do that. You can kind of start in a tabletop with your knees on your support if you'd like. And then step your right foot forward. So if you don't have blocks, you have your hands up on your thigh. And you make sure that your foot is grounded and rooted. I'm just going to adjust a little bit here. Grounded and rooted in the mat. Your knee is right above your heel. And then we're going to come into what's called lounging lizard. So I'm going to bring both my blocks on the inside of my foot. Again, this can be done on your thigh. So I'll show it with blocks, heel, toe off to the side. So we're opening up here, right? We're kind of in a side lunge, but my knee is still right over my heel. So sometimes I see like this, or like this, or like this. So you've got to have good alignment. If you're going to do it with your hands on your thigh, just keep them there. You know, have your hands wherever is comfortable. Me having my hands on my blocks, highest height works totally for me, and feel lots of sensation here. So this front psoas, we're kind of shortening it, and the back psoas, we're thinking about like lengthening. You could come lower. You could come onto your forearms. I don't feel like my spine can be as long when I'm not low, so I stay up here. This pose, we hold a little longer, so we get deeper into this hip crease. You perhaps are feeling it in your glutes or your thigh or somewhere else. As we get deeper, sometimes you can actually get deeper into the pose, and sometimes you need to lift up higher out of the pose. So make sure you honor that. And then start to heel toe back to center if you're using blocks on either side of your foot, and step your foot back. If you want to come into a tabletop for a moment, wiggle out your hips. If you know cat-cow, rounding, arching and opening. And then let's set up for the second side. So step your left foot forward. Just coming into your lunge at first. Hands can be on your blocks, any height, on your thigh. Back toes can be curled under, or the top of your foot can be into the mat. Typically, I have my toes curled under. I have a little more control. If I feel a little tippy, that gives me a little more balance. And then let's set up. So you could be up on your thigh, or bring both of your blocks on the inside of your foot and heel toe. So check in that when you heel toe, it's basically, you're just moving it right to the side. So you're not doing anything wonky, and you're not here, you're not here, you're not here. You could be here, right? You could have your foot far forward, but you're not getting into this as much. So really your goal is to have your knee right over your heel. And then you breathe. You find this comfort in the discomfort. You find this intensity. And you remember that if you are too far over your edge, what happens? You fall off. So don't fall off. If you need to back up, if that means, maybe you're lower on your blocks and you're like, oh boy, and you come higher up. You can come higher up, right? There's all kinds of options. You can come out of the pose. Couple more breaths here. Let's start to heel toe back to center. Step your foot and knee back, and you can come back into a tabletop. I'm just gonna switch my direction for a moment in case you need to see a little cat-cow. Exhale, rounding. Inhale, opening your heart. I'm going to come back sideways again. You can do that if you want. You don't have to. I'm going to keep my padding. So I'm in a high kneel position. So think about like you're in mountain pose, but your feet are your knees. So you want to make sure that you've got nice alignment here. Of course, if you need to go a little wider, you go a little wider. But don't just go wide just because you're like, let's do this. Because I can kind of be here, but you may need that space, right? You want to feel supported by your thigh bones. And then extend your right leg out long. I'm going to move my block just so it's not blocking my foot. So I like, when I come into this position, I like to have my foot placed like this. So the outer edge of my foot is parallel to the short edge of my mat. That might not work for you. So it might be better for you to have your foot in this direction with your heel on the mat and your toes up off the mat, or maybe with your foot down. I don't really like that. This one's okay. I feel more, and I feel safe here. So make sure you feel safe. You could always have your knee bent a little bit, but we do want to be like lengthening. And then basically, depending on where your foot is, but basically think about the arch of your foot being in alignment with your knee to a point, right? You kind of start there and then you make those adjustments for your body. Hands can be at your hips or behind your head. We'll see how I do here. This is not a position I can normally be in for very long. So as you inhale, really feel your torso lengthen. And as you exhale, you're going to start to bring your right elbow down toward the right. So don't twist or anything. Keep your heart open. You're stretching, side bending here, but you don't want to just crunch either, right? So that's why we lengthen and then come over. And we're not adjusting our elbows in any way. They're staying nice and wide. Slight tuck of your chin. My teacher Vicky today called it the Buddha nod. I was like, oh, I like that. So it's not like all the way, we're not lifting up. So it's just a slight nod. Next time you inhale, come up. Exhale, release. Bring your knee back. Coming back to your kneeling position, high kneeling position. And let's come to the other side, extending your left leg long. So check in here, right? Maybe this side is different, needs different setup. I don't want you to feel like jammed or crunched in any way. Find the best spot for you, making any adjustments. It's okay, hands, like you're setting up for crunch, but hands can be at hips as well. Feels okay today. Elbows nice and wide, so we don't want them in. We don't want them like moving back or manipulating my body. So they're just out to the side of it as if my arms were. Inhale, lifting, reaching, lengthening. Exhale, hinging. Light tuck of that chin. Don't go too far. And this feels or seems simple to you, can still be very intense. Moving my hands just because my shoulder is talking to me, so I'm honoring and listening to my body. Next time you inhale, come back up. Release with your exhale, coming back into your high kneel just for a moment. All right, we're gonna come down and have a seat. So I like to sit on a folded blanket, and I'm gonna sit facing toward you, but I'm sitting right at the edge of my blanket. Make sure you have your strap nearby. I'm gonna pretend like I don't have a loop now, and I'm gonna use two ends of the strap. So you're here in your Dandasana staff pose. So we wanna be as tall as we can in our spine. That's why sitting on the edge of the blanket is a good idea. Reaching through both legs. And then move your right leg a little bit off to the side. You're gonna bend your left knee and bring your foot towards your thigh. So if this is too much for your knee, you can use a block or a blanket or a towel under your knee. If it's just too much, you know, you could be here. You could even keep your leg out. Make any adjustment, right? Totally fine. Foot's active. Keep my knees safe. This leg is active. I'm going to take my strap. I'm going to lasso my foot. So right end of the strap is in my right hand. Left end of the strap is in my left hand. We're going to get really tall here. Inhale tall. And then as you exhale, you're going to hinge over your extended leg. Perhaps your hands walk down the strap. Maybe they don't. Maybe you stay here. So if you came all the way down, your heart would touch first. So we don't want to like round to get there. We're lengthening, hinging, and then coming forward, which for some of us doesn't look like much, and that's totally fine. You can always bend this extended knee. I forgot to mention that because tight hamstrings. You can always place something under your knee, a block, a rolled blanket or towel. Let's come back upright. We're going to take the strap into our right hand, and we're going to turn our heart to look over the bent knee, even if your knee isn't bent, this left knee. So we're turning in that direction. And then we're going to think about that side bend like we did earlier when we were in the kneeling position. So you're going to bend and then lengthen the opposite side. So I'm going to start to walk my hand down the strap. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Keeping my heart open. Maybe you hold on to your foot, maybe you don't. So you want to keep this opposite side lengthening, a slight bend on this side, but not collapsing or crunching. Making sure that this shoulder isn't coming up to the ear. So we're keeping the shoulder blades wide. And keep your other hand at your hip. And then inhale back up. Fully exhale, release the strap, extend your legs out long. Maybe you want to do a little wiggle. Maybe you want to do seated windshield wipering, so hands come behind you, bend your knees, place your feet wide, and move your legs side to side. And let's do the second side. Extend your legs out long. So you're reaching here, you're reaching through here in your staff pose. And then we'll move our left foot and leg off to the side. Bend your right knee. Make sure you support, you adjust. This foot stays active. We're going to turn our hearts to look over our extended foot and leg, which is also active. Lasso your foot. Nice and tall. So if you don't have a strap, you just have your hands on your leg or down on the mat. Bend your knee. Place something under the knee. So inhale tall, and as you exhale, start to hinge forward. Remember, keeping your spine long. You're not rounding to come into this forward fold. Inhale back up. Fully exhale. Take the strap into your left hand. Then you're going to turn your heart to look over your right knee. Your side body is basically in alignment with your extended leg. Inhale tall. Exhale, hinge. So you're hinging at this hip crease as you're coming into a side bend, a side stretch. Maybe your hand starts to work its way down the strap. Maybe it holds onto the foot, keeping your heart open. And your other hand at your hip. Slight tuck of the chin. I just want to imagine these bottom ribs, you're trying to bring them forward and through. Next inhale, come on up. Fully exhale, release your strap, set that aside. Legs out long with a wiggle or windshield wipering or something else that would feel good. We're going to come down into constructive rest again. So I'm going to have my blanket or a pillow. I'm going to have a block nearby. Coming back to constructive rest. And then widen your feet as wide as your mat. And the next time you exhale, allow your knees to go over to the right. You can adjust here, bring feet in a little different position if this doesn't quite feel okay. You don't have to go as far either. You don't have to go all the way down. Hands and arms, wherever is comfortable for you. And the next time you inhale, bring your knees back up. And then when you exhale, you bring your knees to the other side. Again, making adjustments, not forcing anything down, whether that's a shoulder, a knee, a foot. Your opposite hip is going to be lifted up off the mat, especially if your legs are pretty close to the floor. The next time you inhale, bring your knees back up. Slowly exhale, have your feet back, hip distance apart in constructive rest. I'm going to set up for a bridge pose. So I have my block for that. If you don't have a block, you can use your blanket. So for bridge pose, we don't want anything under our head. We want to keep the natural curve of our neck. So regardless, I'm going to move my blanket. I'll show setup with the block. Constructive rest, press your feet into the mat, lift your hips up and slide your block so that it's right under your sit bones, your sacrum, your pelvis. And your legs can stay just as they are. You can widen, have your knees come together. To come out, you press your feet, lift up, slide out of the way. A little bit different with the blanket just because it's wider. So if you're enjoying the block, stay there. If you want to set up this way, press your feet, lift up, slide the blanket. It's going to be a little bit under your back and your hips and sacrum. So the block doesn't go under your low back. It's a little bit lower, like where a belt would go. So if you're using the block doesn't feel right, you might need to move it closer to your feet. We'll do this for a little bit and then we'll come into Shavasana. If you're enjoying your supported bridge, you're welcome to stay here for your Shavasana. Check in. If you'd like to stay here, you stay here. If you're ready to come out, I'm going to bring my feet back to hip distance, lift up, slide my support out of the way, and slowly bring my hips back down. I'm going to take my blanket, put it back under my head. Perhaps you want to cover up with the blanket. Usually for shorter Shavasanas, I stay in constructive rest with my feet wide and my knees together. You can extend your legs out long, have support under your knees. If you have an eye pillow and want to use that. Settling back in to whatever your final pose is. Just for a moment, checking in with your breath, noticing the inhales and the exhales, feeling them, feeling the pattern they're making, and let that go. And then notice with your physical body, what parts of your body are connecting with your mat. And let that go. And then checking in with your physical body once again. What parts of your body are not connecting with the mat? Front and back. And let that go. And as you inhale, feel your heart lift. And as you exhale, feel it release. If your mind is just overdoing it, you just tell yourself when you inhale, inhale. And when you exhale, exhale, to help keep you present, keep you connected with your breath without a lot of effort. Coming into the idea of being and not doing. Deepen your breath. Move your fingers and your toes, your feet and hands, ankles and wrists. If you'd like to bring bigger movement into your body, a stretch, hugging your knees in, something else that sounds delicious for your body, please do that. Give you a little yawn. Next breath or two, I'll ask you to roll over to one side. Stay there for a breath or two. And then press yourself up to seated. Come back into a seated position for a moment. It doesn't have to be cross-legged. Wherever you're comfortable, where you can sit tall, where you feel supported. And you'll close your eyes or soften your gaze. Bring your hands together at heart center in Anjali Mudra. Keep peace in your mind, keep strength in your body, and keep love in your heart. Namaste. Thank you so much for practicing with me today. I hope you have a lovely day and that you enjoyed this practice. When the pandemic first kind of started, I was like, I'm going to do a YouTube class every day during the pandemic. And that's when we didn't know how long it was going to last, right? And that was, I actually started redoing classes on my YouTube channel regularly at the end of March 2020. I had a cold, I had a really bad cold for a couple of months. And so like the cough was terrible. I was like, I can't record myself doing yoga because the cough is just so disturbing that you can't enjoy your yoga practice. So once I was feeling better, I started recording classes. And then in the middle of May, so actually just this week is my first anniversary of teaching Zoom yoga. So I've been teaching Zoom yoga regularly for a year. I started my weekly classes a year ago this week. And they're still going strong. So if you're interested in that, you're welcome to email me at The Real Go Fit Girl. I do drop-ins. So if you don't want to commit to the series, we do quarterly series, and quarter 3 will be starting not till July, but you could come for the rest of the quarter 2 series if you're interested. The other thing is that I've decided for the summer that I am not going to record any YouTube classes. So I've gone from doing it every day, that would be crazy, every week to once a month. I think it was in August where I started to record once a month because I realized it was too much. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of time. I love doing it. I want to provide these classes. I want to be available for students, for people I know, for people I don't know. But also I need to make sure I take care of myself. I do have a part-time job. I do teach at least 2 yoga classes a week. Sometimes it's more depending on what I have going on, private sessions, other things like that. So I've decided that for the summer, I'm going to not record any YouTube yoga classes. I still am available for private sessions, for my weekly classes. And then I'll kind of go from there and see how things are feeling, in September, October. Sometimes I get a lot of feedback on classes and sometimes I don't get any. So if you're like, oh my, let me know how you feel, what classes you like, stuff like that. Sometimes you don't hear anything and that's okay too. But it's nice to know what people are thinking, what people are feeling, and making sure that I'm still providing to an audience who wants this kind of yoga. So yeah, so definitely you can comment below. You can email me at therealgofitgirl@gmail.com. You can find me at gofitgirl.com is my website. You can find me on social media, Facebook and Twitter as GoFitGirl and Instagram as The Real Go Fit Girl. So I'm widely available. You can contact me if you'd like. Even if we've never done a class in person, it's fine. I've had people contact me. It's really awesome. And it's great to hear what people like, what works for them. I find that I teach a class and it really resonates with someone. They're like, oh my, I really needed whatever it was that you just taught. This is happening for me. So I'm also here to to listen, to be here to support you. So please let me know how I can be here for you. I hope you have a lovely summer. I have plenty of classes on my channel. I think almost 40 classes, regular classes. I have, I think 9 or 10 shorts. I have a couple of breath work videos, so I have some chair yoga. I have breath work. I have some restorative classes of yoga nidra. And then the majority of my classes are hatha because that's what I mainly teach and what I mainly practice. So those are the main things. If you're looking for something else, I'm happy to recommend another teacher that I know and I feel is safe. There definitely is some not safe yoga out there. And I try to be as safe for my students, for myself as I can be. And a big part of that is honoring our bodies, right? So that's one way I'm doing, honoring my body this summer and not taping any YouTube classes for the summer. And we'll see how it goes from there. So I appreciate your support for you sticking with me in these classes. If you have a request, let me know. We'll see what happens, more in, I guess that would be quarter 4, right? But I'm still available in other ways for yoga. And I've rambled on and on. I'm sorry about that. One more thing, depending on when you're watching this, on Sunday, May 23rd, I am hosting a live yoga class.